What's up, Eagles Nation? How are you guys doing today? It is Wednesday, I guess what is it? The third of November. Holy crap! This season is going by way too fast. Coming fresh off of a bye week, so I decided to also take a bye week, just because when Eastern Washington's not playing, I don't think I have to talk. So we will still recap everything that went over against the Weber game. This is not a hey, we're just not going to talk about it because we lost. Nope, it's just the last few seasons. If there's a bye week, I tend to not do an episode. So sorry if some of you guys are waiting and listening for an episode. Oh well. But hope you guys also had a good Halloween, on this bye week. Hope you guys got to hang out with some family or, do whatever you do. My wife and I, we were trying to be good neighbors for Halloween. We don't have any kids, so we don't do much, especially because it was a Sunday night. We still had to work the next days, but we were trying to be good neighbors. We bought tons of candy for everyone because we live in a, fairly decent sized housing development. And, we just have not gotten any trick or treaters the last 3 seasons. And, in Arizona, we had it was like 500 trick or treaters. And this development in Houston is bigger than the one in Arizona. So every single year we prep. We were like, yeah, we're going to help get all this candy because in Arizona we had just so many, and we just, felt bad when the last few kids didn't get anything. But the first year down here, we bought tons of candy. There was a tornado warning on Halloween. No one trick or treated during a tornado warning. Then last year, it was COVID. It was like we had a few, but it was such a weird year. There just wasn't much. And then this year, there's still COVID that lingers around, but it is Texas. People are still out and about doing pretty much everything. And we bought a whole bunch of candy going. This is the year. We're gonna get some kids wearing their Iron Man costumes or whatever. Maybe Squid Games. Who knows? Even though if kids are watching Squid Games, that's probably messed up on the parents. Maybe they shouldn't be doing that. Maybe that's more of a college outfit. But, oh well. Yeah, so we bought tons of candy. There was a few trick-or-treaters, right before the sunset, and we're like, all right, we're feeling pretty good. I let kids take whole handfuls. But once it got dark, your boy, this host of this podcast, realized he's kind of an idiot. Normally, when the lights are off, you do not attend homes. Well, our lights weren't off, but you have to walk down this little area. It's in between the garage and the house just to get to our front door. It's like a path that's kind of covered, and it's a decent ways away from the street. Probably a good 80 feet. I guess that's not too bad, but well, we have motion sensor lights, so and they only turn on when you're like 5 feet away from the actual door. So you have to walk down that little path in between the garage and the actual home. And yeah, your boy, he forgot we have motion sensor lights. So once it became dark, not one person came to our home. So now we're stuck with 8 pounds of candy, and my wife absolutely loves it. I hate it because I'm eating it all the time, which I guess sometimes that's awesome. It sucks, man. We're gonna have candy till November, or it's gonna be gone by this week because I can't stop eating all the candy I bought. Because I'm also an idiot and I buy stuff that I want just in case there's there's like 20 pieces left over. Nope, there's like thousands of pieces left over. So, F my life. I'm gonna, eat a good amount of candy. But yeah, that's a little bit it for the welcome. Just give you a little bit of how my weekend went, why I didn't record last week, and now why am I going to get even fatter? So yeah, hopefully you guys are not in the same boat as me. But yeah, we do need to talk about, unfortunately, a loss. The interesting thing is when we're playing in any season, right? This was the first year since we've been Division One that we were 7-0. We're always dropping a game. There's been a few seasons where we've ran through the big sky and went 8-0, but even that's rare. 2010, we had a loss. 2018, we had a loss. Those are, the years we went to Frisco. We went 7-1 in those years in conference. It happens. The Big Sky's a tough conference, especially when we're playing a team like Weber State, who, yes, they weren't ranked. Now they totally are. But like I said on the podcast previewing them, they're one of those teams that is a lot better than what their record shows. Unfortunately for Weber, they were hit early with the injury bug, and they had one of the most brutal schedules. They played Utah. You're not going to win against Utah, and they were healthy in that game, but you're still not just going to win against Utah. Utah is a solid Pac-12 team. And then you're playing James Madison. James Madison is a historic power in the FCS level, and they're actually going FBS in the next few seasons. It looks like they accepted an offer from the Sun Belt, so we are going to be losing an FCS power. But James Madison, the last 4 years, since 2016, they've been one or two basically every single season. And this last season, they were still a semifinal team in the spring where they lost to Sam Houston in a game where they were blowing out Sam Houston. Weaver played them with a third-string quarterback. And it's kind of a style nightmare matchup for Weber State. I have talked a lot about styles and matchups and stuff, and there are just some teams that have a better style matchup versus other teams. Like even in the 2018 FCS playoffs, we were playing Maine, and I said in a podcast right before that game, this is going to be the easiest game we will play in the playoffs. Yes, Maine is better than everyone we've played in the playoffs, but stylistically, they don't match up well with us. And it was proven. It was one of the easiest games we've had in really playoff history. So, I mean, styles make for matchups. Weber was not an easy game for James Madison, but it's still a style matchup, a style mismatch, if you will. So, yeah, they lost to JMU with a third-string quarterback. Whoop-de-doo. And then they played UC Davis with the third-string quarterback, who UC Davis right now is a top 10 team. They're a top 10 team. I mean, what more do you want? Most teams are not going to beat top 10 teams with a third-string quarterback, and they lost by 2 points. It is what it is. And then they played Montana State, who we're going to be previewing. They are a top 5 team now, and they were healthy. Josh Davis did go out halfway through the game with a really bad injury, but they were healthy. But Montana State is a really good team who has a really good defense and a really good offense. And it was a fairly boring game, but Montana State's good. So then Weber State came to us, and unfortunately we lost. Weber State is not going to lose to every good team that they play. It's just not in their DNA. And also, Jay Hill has done an extremely good job against Aaron Best. I don't want to say he outcoaches him or whatever. We will talk a little bit about the coaching in this game because Jay Hill did some fantastic things. But Weber State in the last 3 matchups versus Eastern Washington is 3-0. And they've all been good games. I remember, they played us with Eric Berrier's second start in career history, or maybe it was third because he did play the season before when Gage was in a little bit of trouble against North Dakota, and then we played South Dakota or Southern Utah the week before Weber in 2018. But we lost 6-14. It's competitive. The year prior to that, when they came to Cheney, and they were co-champs, we lost 20-28, I believe, something like that. And then again, right now, 34-35. They're all really competitive games where if a couple things went, maybe our way, we probably could have won in each one of those games. It's not like Weber State's completely outplaying us, but there are some differences on what Weber does well that matches up well against Eastern Washington. For one, they have one of the best pass defenses in the whole country. I mean, they held before this Eastern Washington game 5 of the 6 FCS quarterbacks they've played to under 100 yards passing. They held every FCS quarterback they've played this season to under 200 yards passing. James Madison's was the best at I think it was like 170 or 180. Even Utah, they held their quarterback to under 250 yards passing or something like that. I mean, what Weber State is able to do with their DBs, there's a reason why we call them DBU. They are a fantastic defense from the line to the DBs to the safeties. And it's something that Eastern Washington will struggle with. The good news is most defenses we face aren't good in every aspect. Like when we're facing a Montana. Amazing front line, amazing linebackers. They are blitzing. They're having some crazy schemes. Their DBs aren't that good. Weber State has has it all. So even when they're not getting to Eric Berrier, they're one of the few teams that I think can match up well with our wide receivers and give them hell. And it's just one of those games. I think Eastern Washington, for the most part, was playing a little bit better than Weber. Um, this is where they were a little bit outcoached. You know, let's just talk about, for some reason, the ridiculous amount of fumbles even when Eastern Washington wasn't touched. This was something that doesn't happen. I mean, I think we had like 6 fumbles. Now we were able to recover some of them, but like some of the fumbles, no one on the defensive side touched our guys. For some reason, we were just having a hard time holding on to the ball no matter what happened. And I don't know what that is. I don't know if it was like too much excitement. I don't know if it was nerves. I don't know what it was. If it was, we just want to beat Weaver so bad, we're not really paying attention to how to play. But yeah, we couldn't hold on to the ball. Eric Berrier, he looked. I don't even want to say rattled. He looked like if you took back a couple years. There were some plays like online was like, oh, so that's all you have to do. Eric makes really bad plays when you're in his face. I have never seen a team in Eric's face as much as Montana was, and he made fantastic plays. Um, there was times where there was no one in Weaver's face, and he was missing throws he normally makes. You know, again, I don't know what it was. Maybe it was a little bit of the too much. Hmm. Maybe our team thought that they just couldn't be beat. There is maybe that mantra. Maybe they're like, we can do whatever we want. No one's going to be able to stop us. And that's a wrong mantra to have against a Weaver State, who is a team that can stop anyone. But also, let's focus about the coaching. There was 3 fake punts. Jay Hill, what a fantastic scenario to do. For one, yeah, you capitalize on one fake punt. You're like, that is so awesome. Hands out or hats off to the special teams coach from Weber. I don't know his name, so I'm just gonna say it's Jay Hill's doing, just because that's the only coach I know the name of. But one fake punt, and you're like, crap, that was solid. Good call. 2 fake punts. Now you're kind of going, okay, what are they seeing that we're not? 3 fake punts. That's when you just go, okay, we're just doing a stupid job on the special teams. We are not doing a good job on special teams. And I really think that special teams was the key to this game. Again, Weaver State's offense was actually playing pretty well. We were getting the stops when we needed to for the most part. They were only 8 for 20 on third downs. Their fourth down efficiency, because 3 fake punts really extended those drives to make them competitive with us. Once you extend those drives, guess what? Now you're in a better opportunity to score. Penalties, we were actually pretty solid. We didn't have too many penalties. It was an overall clean game, for both teams. 10 penalties for 100 yards. Each one only had 50 yards. That's pretty good. Passing, we weren't the best in passing. We were efficient enough when it came down to like the end of the game and specific drives. Specific drives, we looked like the Eastern Washington team that's been playing all season. Then there were other drives where, like I said, sometimes Weaver wasn't even in Eric Berrier's face, and he was missing 3 horrible passes in a row. The rushing game, we were solid. I mean, 189 yards, 37 rushing attempts, 5.1 yards per play. I'll take that any day of the week, especially against a Weaver State type of defense. But our defense didn't play that good. Again, they played good on third down conversions. They, Weaver did have to punt the ball a good amount, but also they were able to capitalize on these, fake punts. I really think special teams and turnovers, I mean, that's how we lost the game. Miss extra point, again, we could have tied it. It could have went 35-35 and going to overtime, and I think we had the momentum. I mean, we scored the last 14 points, and the end of the game was pretty insane. So I did not get to watch this game live, guys. I was at the F1 race, which, holy crap, that is so cool. If you guys ever get an opportunity to go to an event like that, I don't care if you're not a race fan. The Formula One race in Austin, Texas was such a blast. Over 440,000 people attended there the weekend. It was such a good time. But this is not an F1 podcast. This is an Eastern Washington podcast. But yeah, I didn't get to watch the game, and that's also why I did not. That's another reason why I didn't record an episode last week. I didn't even watch it till about Friday of this last weekend. Finally got to watch kind of the game and see how it went. But Weber State, they had us by 14 points with about 6 minutes left. And it looked like it was just game over. And then that's when we finally decided, hey, we are going to do a good amount of things here. There was a 78-yard drive. We took 2 minutes off the clock. And again, this was all at about 6 minutes. And now it's 35-28. And then Weaver turns it over, which was pretty cool. We got a fumble. So we had 6 plays, 39 yards, touchdown, under 2 minutes left. And our defense was playing well. Our offense was playing well. Seth Harrison missed the extra point again. I don't want to just bash on our kicker. Kicking is such a difficult task. I know people, they just want to say, kickers, you have one job. You need to do your job. There's so much pressure on the line with a kicker. But an extra point, that's just something that can't happen, especially when it is this type of a game, 35-34. I mean, if Eastern Washington won out, we get home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Now we're probably on the road in the semis. And we still have to beat Montana State. We still have to beat UC Davis to get home field advantage through at least the quarters. So, I mean, that makes it a little bit difficult. But we missed extra point. Could have tied it. Could have went to overtime. And I think Eastern Washington had the momentum there. I think even Weber guys would agree with me on that one. They didn't want to see Eastern Washington in overtime. That's all we had to do, make an extra point. And it was not even close. When you watch that kick, it was not close. Seth Harrison, I mean, he was fantastic. Basically, up until this season. I don't have the stats in front of me because I don't really want to read through them, but our special teams, our kicking game has absolutely hurt us this year. We've missed so many times. I mean, we dominated UNLV and we missed some kicks that made it close. Idaho, we missed some kicks. Here, we missed a crucial extra point. If we're not going to be successful on all 3 phases of the ball, we're not going to beat the top tier teams like a North Dakota State, like a Sam Houston, like a James Madison, like a Weber State, like a Montana State, all of these teams. If we don't capitalize on the offensive side of the ball, we can make some mistakes here and there on offense and defense as long as we're playing a fairly good game. But if you're making mistakes on offense like we did, if you're making mistakes on defense like we did, if you are completely dominated on special teams on all sides, from punts to kicks, you're not going to beat a Weber State. When I was rewatching this game, it's like, honestly, we should have lost by more. I mean, it is what it is. It's cool we were able to fight back. It's cool we were able to make it a competitive game. But this was the sloppiest I've seen Eastern Washington play all year. And again, I think we were actually beat on all 3 phases of the ball. We were beat on the defensive side of the ball. We were beat on the offensive side of the ball. And we were definitely beat on the special teams. At least with offense and defense, it was so similar. We were pretty even with Weber State to Eastern Washington on offense and defense. Now, we turned the ball over a lot. 3 times. They turned it over twice. But realistically, we could have turned the ball over 6 times with how many times we were fumbling. Overall, Eric Barrier, this was his worst game of the year. But when you look at his stats versus Weber State, no other quarterback's still been able to do this versus Weber State. He had still over 300 yards total offense. I think it was like 320 plus 3 touchdowns. No other quarterback, that's including Utah, was able to do that against James Madison. Or against Weber State, sorry. I was even going to say, and even James Madison couldn't do that to Weber State. So, yeah, he was able to do what he does. He was able to put us in a position to win the game. Unfortunately, special teams failed us completely. And I know we lost our special teams coach in the beginning of the season. That still, man, it still is not an excuse. You can't give up 3 fake punts. Jay Hill, props to you. I like the aggressive play calling. it kind of reminded me in a whole different aspect, but when like Dan Hawkins in the playoffs came to Eastern Washington with UC Davis, and it's like, all right, kick an extra point to tie it, or let's go for two. What balls you have to do three fake punts. I give you props for that. Unfortunately, man, our special teams just failed us, and I'm at the point. I trust Eric Berrier in a fourth, and I don't care what yardage is over our special teams. I really just do. I'd rather not kick a field goal anymore. Now, of course, I'm gonna completely backtrack what I say when I'm actually watching the game, and maybe they go for it on a fourth and goal, and we don't get it. I'm like, oh, you should have kicked the ball, you idiots. But as of right now, I mean, trust our best players. Eric Berrier, Dennis Merritt, give it to Boston, give it to Chisholm, give it to Limu Jones. We got the playmakers on offense, and I don't know, man. I just right now, it's whenever we line up for a kick, I get a bad feeling in my stomach. And I mean, look at what Weaver is able to do. 31-yard field goal, 45-yard field goal, making all the extra points. We just can't do it. And it's unfortunate. And, this is not a Seth Harrison bashing moment. He has been so fantastic prior, and he made some kicks. He has made some gnarly kicks this season. But then there's just some head scratchers, and I don't know what we need to do. We did have versus Montana that freshman kicker. Maybe it's just time we give him a shot, because I don't know if it's a mental thing. I don't know if Seth Harrison's leg is not there. I don't know maybe if it's even the special coaches or the snapper who's not lining it up or the placeholder. I don't know, but something's not working for the most part. We can't miss these kicks. We lost home field advantage throughout the playoffs. I mean, unless North Dakota State loses, James Madison loses, Montana State loses, Sam Houston State loses, doesn't look like we're going to be able to get a home game in the semis. And I don't see those teams losing. I mean, maybe Montana State, when they play us this weekend, we are going to talk a little bit about them. But looking at James Madison's schedule, they're not losing. Looking at North Dakota State's schedule, they can still probably afford to lose one game and still be above Eastern. But I don't think they're losing. Looking at Sam Houston State's schedule, they're definitely not losing. So unfortunately, it is what it is. The best case scenario for us is, hoping to get that 3 seed as long as we show up and do our business. But before we talk about the Montana State game, let's go a little bit around the Big Sky, kind of see what's going on. Let's see here. Let's go the standings. Okay, because here's the crazy thing about the Big Sky this year. For the most part, we did extremely well in the out-of-conference schedule. There were some really good games against FCS opponents. There was also really benefiting scheduling, playing Butler, playing all of these really bad teams instead of playing some of the top-tier teams of the Valley. That really benefited us. But we're just going to kind of go down the standings, and then we're going to talk a little bit about playoff aspirations, and then we'll preview this Montana State game. Montana State sits up at the top of the conference 5-0, 7-1 overall. They have not lost to an FCS team. Sacramento State, 5-0 in conference, 6-2 overall. Now, they've lost to a P5 team, and then they lost to Northern Iowa, they beat South Dakota State. They beat Southern Illinois. They are peaking at the right time. But also, this was the time when Sacramento State still thought Asher O'Hara was their quarterback. He threw 53 times in that game or something crazy like that. Now he's strictly their running option quarterback. They use a 2-quarterback system. Losing to Northern Iowa kind of proved to Troy Taylor this isn't going to work. So now they have, Dunaway and O'Hara, and they're kind of doing a 2-system quarterback like Eastern Washington did in 2012 with West and Vernon Adams. And we made it to the semis. I think still the 2-quarterback system kind of hurt us. Sacramento State also has the easiest schedule in the Big Sky. But they're taking care of business. They're 5-0, 6-2 overall. Eastern Washington, 4-1, 7-1 overall. UC Davis, 4-1, 7-1 overall. Montana, 3-2, 6-2 overall. There's 5 teams right there with above 6 wins and only 2 to 1 loss. When you're looking at the rest of the schedules, there is a very, very realistic chance Montana State is going to end with 9 to 10 wins. There is a very, very realistic chance Sacramento State is going to end with 8 to 9 wins. 8 to 9 wins. Eastern Washington, very realistic chance we are going to end with 8 to 10 wins. UC Davis, very realistic chance they're going to end with 8 to 10 wins. Montana, very realistic chance they're going to end the season with 8 wins. You have 5 teams right now in the Big Sky who's probably going to end the season with 8 wins. Every single season that has gotten you into the playoffs. Normally, the cutoff for a Big Sky team is about 7 wins. And normally we have multiple 7-win teams. Normally we have 3 teams above 8 wins. The rest are 7 and 4 or lower. So normally it's like, all right, we're going to pick a Weber State, an Eastern Washington, or an NAU. Which one has the best resume out of those 7-win teams? They're going to make the postseason. We have 5 teams that are going to have 8-0 or over 8 wins. I really do think that. It's just how it's pairing up. I think right now it's almost a lock for the Big Sky to get 5 teams in the playoffs. I think it's almost a lock. But then also you have a couple other teams like Portland State. I think they're already done. Someone put them in their bracketology. Dude, they're going to end, even if they win out, they're going to end 7 and 4, only 6 and 4 versus Division I opponents. They're already done. But the other intriguing one is Weber State right now. They are ranked. They are 4 and 4. They have a very favorable schedule to end the season, where I think they go 7 and 4. In a normal year with the resume Weber State has in the Big Sky, you're in the playoffs. Like I said, very close loss to UC Davis with a 3rd-string quarterback. Competitive game versus James Madison. Overall, I know James Madison people think, oh, it wasn't that competitive. It was until you had a fluke kick return touchdown. Or not kick return, but a blocked field goal touchdown. Before that, it was locked in. And the momentum was there. And again, that was with Weber State's 3rd-string quarterback. Barron is way better than their 3rd-string quarterback. Okay. And then Montana State. Very close competitive game with a healthy Weber. 3 losses to top 10 teams, and 2 of them are in the top 5. The other one is top 10, and then you have a win over a top 5 team right now. And 99.9% of the Big Sky years, that is a lock for the playoffs. That is a lock for the postseason. This year, probably not. I mean, I just don't see Big Sky getting 6 teams, but it's potentially going to happen. I mean, that's the crazy thing. I think there is a chance the Big Sky may get 6. I think it's a small chance, though. But I think it's almost a lock to get 5 teams, as long as the teams up top take care of business and do what they're supposed to do. You know, Northern Arizona, they're 4 and 4. I have not looked at the rest of their season. I do not think that they're going to win, go 7 and 4. But if they go 7 and 4 somehow, at the end of the day, they do have that FBS win. That's going to be like 1.5 wins in the committee's eyes. They beat Arizona. They lost to Sam Houston State, the number 1 team in the nation. Now they got just rolled. It wasn't even a competitive game, but that was also with Northern Arizona using a completely different quarterback than they use now. They kind of figured some things out and started rolling with RJ Martinez. But the big kicker for NAU is they have no good wins. And they also lost to Northern Colorado in overtime. So that FBS win against, I still think Arizona they might be winless. They may be one of the worst teams. They're by far the worst team in the Power 5, but they may be one of the worst teams in the FBS. But okay, so Northern Arizona, they're 4 and 4. Portland State 4 and 4. Weber State 4 and 4. They're all 3 and 2 in the Big Sky. And then we have Northern Colorado 3 and 6. Their road does not get any easier, but they're 2 and 4 in the Big Sky. Then you have really the bottom of the bottom, Idaho 1 and 4, 2 and 6 overall. They have 1 FCS win. Their other win was against Simon Fraser. They're just getting beat. Idaho State 1-5 in the conference, 1-7 overall. They are trash. And then you have these two real bad teams. Cal Poly 0-5, 1-7 overall. Southern Utah 0-6, 1-8 overall. They are just real bad. I mean, Southern Utah's win was against newcomer Tarleton State, and then Cal Poly's win is against San Diego, who, yes, used to be a dominant, Pioneer League team. They're still gonna be a team above a 500 record, but it's a non-scholarship team. Every Big Sky team should beat these teams, and Cal Poly did, but everyone else, they are not even competitive. So that's kind of around the Big Sky. Realistically, it looks like we're gonna have 5+ teams in the playoffs, which is pretty cool if you're a Big Sky fan. The Missouri Valley looks like they're also going to get 5+ teams in the big dance, the playoffs. Everyone else, the CAA probably gets 2 to 3. And then there's going to be one other conference that there's some big games this weekend. Sam Houston versus EKU. If you're not familiar with them, they're in the AQ7. But if EKU can knock off Sam Houston, they're almost a lock for the playoffs. If Incarnate Word can knock off Southeastern Louisiana, they're almost a lock for the playoffs. If they don't, both of them may not get into the playoffs. And then there's a big game coming up in the Big South in a few weeks. Kennesaw State, they've been a playoff perennial team the last few seasons since they actually developed a football team. But they're playing Monmouth. Both are 4-0 in conference. If Monmouth loses, the Big South 100% is only getting one team. If Monmouth beats Kennesaw and wins the auto bid, there's a chance Kennesaw has a resume at the end of the year to potentially get in the playoffs. So that may also, if you're a Weber State fan, you want to root for chaos in the Southland. You want, not really chaos, you actually want to root for the opposite. You want to root for the dominant teams to win. You want to root for Southeastern Louisiana to beat Incarnate Word. You want to root for Sam Houston State to crush EKU. You want to root for Kennesaw State to just throttle Monmouth. And then you're going to want to root for, maybe some of these other CAA teams that are on the cusp of a 7-4 just to eliminate that extra, bid where you're like, all right, a CAA team 7-4, Weber 7-4, CAA team's number 4 in conference, Weber's number 6. I'm going to take the CAA team. That's probably what the committee will do. So you're going to want to root for that chaos if you want a chance. But if you went out, you're a bubble team, but you could be one of the last 4 in or one of the last 4 out. It's going to be interesting. Okay. Now the preview with Montana State. Let's just talk about who we're playing a little bit. Okay. Now Montana State has had a fairly easy schedule overall. They've had 2 tough games. Wyoming, they lost in a very competitive game. Hats off to Montana State. That's not a game that you're supposed to win, really. You did a hell of a job. Then they played Weber, and they won. Very close game. Completely different game than Eastern Washington Weber, but still a very close game across the board. It was just defense, no offense. Ours was a little bit of everything. Sometimes there's no defense. Sometimes there's no offense. There was no special teams with us, and then there was a massive amount of special teams for Weber State. But Eastern Washington is by far the number 1 offense in the nation, they are in the nation too, but in the Big Sky, they're averaging 51.5 points a game, 412 points. We have 55 touchdowns, only 8 field goals. That's where it's like, we do have 46 extra points, but Montana State's the number 2 offense in the nation, but I think they are in the Big Sky. I keep saying nation, it's Big Sky. But they have benefited from a much easier schedule until they played Weber, where that offense was completely shut down. But they have 32 overall touchdowns. They've scored 268 points. They are averaging about 20 points less per game than us at 33.5, but they're the number 2 in the Big Sky. Here's where it gets a little bit different. Montana State's defense, like Weber's, we're actually playing 3 extremely good defenses back to back to back. UC Davis is the number 2 defense rated in the Big Sky right now. Montana State is the number 1. They have only given up, let's see here. Let me extend my little computer. Come on. So they've only given up 83 total points, or like Eastern Washington has given up 225. They are giving up an average of 10 points a game. We are giving up an average of 28. They are scoring on average of 33 points a game. We are scoring on average 51 or almost 52. It's, we're the number 8 ranked defense in the conference. We've given up 29 total TDs. They have only given up 9. Both have only given up seven field goals. So it seems like with Eastern Washington, you're going to beat us on big plays. Typically, when it's driving in the red zone and stuff like that, we're actually fairly good. But, there's been a lot of big plays that have been given up. So, yeah, the defense, Montana State is an absolute beast on defense. Weber State was the number 3 passing defense in the nation until they played Eastern Washington. Now they are, I believe, like the number 9 or 10 passing defense in the nation. Well, guess who took their spot for number 3 in the nation? And this is not the Big South. I'm talking about the nation. Montana State is the number 3 passing defense in the nation. Now, they definitely have not played an offense like us. When you look at their schedule, the last 5 games, Portland State, Northern Colorado, Cal Poly, Weber, and Idaho State. Overall, not one of them is a good offense. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see how they adapt. But when you're the number 3 passing defense in the nation and top 5 in scoring defense, that means points allowed. I think they are, 10.4 points a game seems pretty crazy. And maybe that's just conference stats, but I know for at least passing defense, because I looked it up, they're number 3 in the nation. They're just as good as Weber as a passing defense. It's going to be tough. It will be tough to sling the ball. And then also they have a very stout front 7. They're going to be able to stop the run. There has been plays where it seems like they are susceptible to the run. But at the same time, this isn't a team I'm going to want to just throw everything out the window and go, all right, let's just try and run it on them. If you just try and run it on them, you're not going to win. You definitely need to spread the field. You need to get your guys open, but it's going to be tougher said than done. They do have the number 3 passing defense for a reason. They're solid across the board. Offensively, they're not as good as their stats show. I will say that. I don't think offensively they are this juggernaut of a team, but they do have some playmakers. I like Matt McKay. Okay, he's a transfer from North Carolina. Oh man, I'm gonna butcher it. No, NC, North Carolina State. Oh, whatever. Someone will correct me. I think it's North Carolina State. Matt McKay. He's had a pretty successful year so far. 115 completions out of 177 attempts. 1,556 yards, 15 touchdowns, only 1 interception. But the last 3 games, he has struggled getting the ball down the field. And I think that is because, or maybe it's only the last 2 games, but that's because the competition has got a little bit better. Well, maybe not. They did play Idaho State. Weber State, I can understand why he wasn't able to get the ball down the field. They are a fantastic defense. Afonso. Not much to say about Afonso. That's the running back for Montana State. Arguably the best running back in the Big Sky. One of the best in the nation. Hopefully he gets some looks in the next level because he's fun to watch. 150 carries, 907 yards, 7 touchdowns. He's able to run over people. He's able to juke. He's able to do whatever he wants. He is going to be someone we really have to prep for. That's going to be the guy. They're going to lean on him over Matt McKay. Afonso is the guy that they're going to do to keep the ball rolling, keep the ball out of Eric Barrier's hands. The longer you can keep it out of Eric Barrier's hands, the less rhythm Eric Barrier can get in a rhythm to. And every team, the goal is don't let Eric Barrier have the ball. Afonso is that type of guy who can minimize the amount of times Eric Barrier is going to have the ball. And they have a very talented receiver in Lance Mccutchen. 39 receptions, 663 yards, 5 touchdowns. Pretty similar to our Aaron Boston. 35 receptions, 629, 5 touchdowns. Lance Mccutchen, he has a pretty good wingspan. He's an athlete. He looks like he packed on some weight. I was listening to the R&R Cats cast. So if you guys aren't familiar with some of the podcasts around the Big Sky, R&R Catcast, give them a listen. They're going to be probably dropping an episode today, I would assume, maybe tomorrow, kind of previewing this Eastern Washington game. Give them a listen. They're two dudes named Ryan from Seattle, or maybe it's Washington. I don't remember if they're from Spokane or Seattle. They're two dudes named Ryan. They drink Jeremiah, Brewing Company. They're pretty cool dudes. They hate Eastern Washington with a passion. They're like, the only two teams I will never root for is, Montana and Eastern Washington. They hate us. And I understand why. When you look at what Montana State's been able to do versus Eastern Washington the last ever, it hasn't been good. When you look at, let's see here, the last few matchups, they haven't beaten Eastern Washington since 2011. We are on a 7-0 win streak, but even if you go all the way back to 2000 or 1998, they have 4 wins total, and 17 losses. This has just been a matchup. For some reason, Eastern Washington has been absolutely dominant. And this is even before the 2010s when we were just rolling through people. And Montana State has had some good teams also. But this has just been a game, for some reason, we've been exceptionally good at. There has been some really good battles. I remember back in the day, I forgot what year it was. It was like a 55-51 type of a game. Just a complete shootout. I don't think we're going to see that here. I think it's going to be very similar to the Weber State game we saw, and hopefully we just capitalize on some special teams play. I think Eric Barrier, he needs to take over this game. You don't have to be perfect. You're not going to be perfect. Montana State is fantastic. They're fantastic on all sides of the ball. Not really too sold on their passing game overall, but they've also been successful in the passing game. But yeah, Eric Barrier, you need to take the ball over. You need to dictate the speed of the game, the tempo of the game. In defense, you got to find a way to slow Afonso down. Can you? I have no clue. I'm not going to sit here and go, Afonso, we should easily be able to shut this dude down. No, we're not going to shut him down. He's going to be able to march down the field, but we have to do a good job minimizing, especially on third downs. The good thing is our defense has been fantastic on third down conversions. We need to keep that up. If we can, have Montana in quite a bit of third down spots, 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 7s, I feel confident that they're not going to get a lot of those conversions. Like I said, we've been successful in third downs pretty much all year. We're one of the better third down defenses. But we better be better on special teams this week. I don't want to see a kick return for a touchdown on Montana State's side. I don't want to see some fake punts. We really need to make our kicks. If we don't capitalize on special teams, we're not beating Montana State. We just aren't. We need to play a damn near perfect game to beat Montana State this year. They are that good. Montana State is a fantastic team. They're number 4 in the nation for a reason. Yes, they probably have the weakest strength of schedule of all the top 10. But for a majority of the time, like when they're playing those weak teams, they're doing what good teams should do to those weak teams to validate they're number 4 in the nation. Idaho State is horrible. They still beat them by 20 points. Cal Poly is horrible. They still beat them by 40 points. Northern Colorado is horrible. They still beat them by 35 points or whatever it is, which Montana just struggled. Well, they struggled with Southern Utah. Never mind. They're playing Northern Colorado this week, so we'll see. We'll see what they can do. Montana's kind of struggling with all their injury bugs. Portland State and Weber State were the only teams that they've struggled against, and even Portland State, they struggled and still won 30-17. Is that really a struggle? No, it just wasn't the dominant performance we probably thought they would have had. But Weber State, they still beat Weber State. They struggled offensively. They still beat them. Why? Because their defense is a nightmare matchup for a lot of teams. If you have a subpar offense, you are not scoring points on Montana State. You need an elite offense to score points. And even then, you're not going to have your great numbers like you probably would against a mediocre defense or anyone not named Weaver or Montana State. Montana State can beat you on all facets of the game. So we need to play a damn near perfect game. We need to stretch the field. We need to try and contain Afonso. And you know what? I don't care if we give up a few big plays in Mccutchen. I'd rather give up big plays, like a 60-yard TD, than having Afonso continue to march down the field, take off 8 minutes off the clock, and just control that line of scrimmage and keep the ball out of Eric Berry's hand. That's the goal for Montana State. That is what they are going to try and do. We need to stop them from being able to march down the field, control that clock. We need to capitalize on turnovers. McKay's only thrown one interception. He's not making a lot of bad throws. Okay? So we got to somehow maximize his ability to make a stupid throw. I don't know if that's getting to him. I don't know if that's getting the pressure, making him try and scramble more. But Montana State's O-line is fantastic too. There's really not a lot of weaknesses. The weakness is right now the quarterback play. And he still has 15 touchdowns, only one interception. Is that really a weakness? Right? I mean, again, Montana State looks fantastic. In the preseason episode that I did when I was going through the whole schedule, we have such a fantastic home field schedule. We have such a fantastic home schedule and a great road schedule. I predicted us to be 7-0. I predicted us to beat Weber but lose to Montana State. Okay. And the reason was I said we have all of the tough teams at home. We're not beating all of them. We're going to drop one game. And in the episode I said it could be Montana, it could be Montana State, it could be Weber State. I kind of played the odds and said I think we beat Montana, I think we beat Weber State, but we'll probably lose to Montana State. I still think that's true. I think we were going to lose one game at home. I think that was almost a give me, just because, yes, our home field advantage is so fantastic. The home field record has been dominant since we installed the red. You're not winning every single game when you're playing all of the tough teams at home. So I predicted us to go 9-2. I predicted us to lose Montana State and then lose on the road to UC Davis. The more I watch UC Davis, I'm not positive we're going to lose on the road. They're still a very good team. They're still a top 10 team. But the more I watch them, the more they're struggling versus not top tier teams. And like Eastern doesn't struggle with those teams. We'll struggle with these top 5 teams, but we're not going to struggle against a Idaho State. We're definitely not going to lose in Idaho State. We're not going to struggle versus a Northern Colorado or an Idaho, right? UC Davis struggled with Idaho State. They lost. They struggled with Idaho. Idaho almost beat them. Our team is too damn gifted, too athletic. We don't struggle with the bad teams. But Montana State's not a bad team. We are going to struggle with them. But if we can capitalize, if we can play well on all 3 sides of the ball. Offensively, I like our chances offensively versus anyone in the nation. I said no one is going to be able to hold us to under 34 points. We were almost did. we got to come back, but still, hey, we still scored 34 points. And I said I don't think anyone's going to be able to really score over 28. Weaver did. Unfortunately, those special teams, they were able to score over 28. Montana State does have a better offense than Weber State. So it will be kind of interesting to see what bends, what breaks. This is Powers. This is like our strengths versus their strengths. I don't really see too many weaknesses on Montana State's, but I would actually say, their weakness versus our strength. Our strength is actually our passing defense. You may not look at it that way compared to the rest of the defense. Like our DBs are actually pretty solid. So this is, maybe this is a strength for strength. Can Eastern Washington's passing offense, get some holes against Montana State's elite passing defense? We'll see. Can Montana State's running game run all over Eastern Washington? That is the one strength versus weakness. We don't have the best running defense in Montana State. They are a rushing team. So that's where this becomes a little bit more of a mismatch on paper. And like I said in the beginning of this episode, I'm keen on Matchups versus or styles and matchups. Right now, I'm leaning towards Montana State does have a slightly better style to play us than we do to play them. Okay, I mean matchups and styles, man. Montana State, they're playing their strength versus our strength, their weakness versus, I guess, our strength. But I don't think their passing game is really too much of a weakness. Then they're playing their strength versus our weakness, and their running game is a really good strength. So it will be interesting to see. I think it's a very close game. This is one of those games that could go either way. Kind of like when I was talking about the Montana game. Besides, I was like, this is a game where I could see Montana winning by 3, Montana winning by 50, Eastern winning by 50, or Eastern winning by 3. Now, I don't think any of these teams are going to beat each other by 50 on this one. I do think this is going to be a 3 to 7 point game, and Montana State could be having a little bit of the advantage, or Eastern can. I'm going to do a little bit of a score prediction. I still think we only lose one game at home. Now, I am 7-1 on the season on my score predictions. So, we'll see if it's 7-2, or we'll see if it can make it up to 8-1. Did I say 7-3? I meant to say 7-1. Jesus Christ. But yeah, I don't think we lose 2 games at home. If we're going to lose to anyone, though, it is Montana State, for all the reasons that we just kind of described. But I don't think we drop 2 at home. I think this is going to be a super competitive game, though. I think it's going to be one of Eastern's lowest scoring games. I'm still going to go a 7-point game, though, just because I want to kind of go to what I thought would happen for most games, that no one's going to be able to score 28, no one's going to be able to hold us to under 34. So I'm going to say 34-28 Eastern Washington. This is a game I don't feel super confident in. Montana State, they could easily win. And if they win, they deserve it. They deserve a top 4 seed in the nation, especially if they can, win out and beat Montana State. This is a very good team. Vegan, first-year coach, has ties to North Dakota State, has ties to, Craig Bull. He's kind of the quarterback whisperer, maybe. We'll see. Yeah, man, I think this is going to be a very good game. If you are even, listening to this podcast and you're not a fan of the Big Sky or Eastern Washington, or you don't care about either one of these teams, this is still one of the best games in the nation this week. This is something you tune into. It's at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, ESPN+. This is going to be a fun game. Win or lose, I'll root for my Eagles. But win or lose, this is a top 4 versus top 5 matchup. Top 5 matchup. And how cool is that? And then next week, Eastern Washington gets another top 10 team as long as UC Davis wins this week. Three top 10 teams, at the time when we're playing them. Pretty insane. This is such a fun schedule for Eastern Washington fans. So please show up. Get to the freaking stadium. Homecoming was such an embarrassment to watch on TV when I watched the replay. I don't know what it is. Every other year, since we've installed the red, sold out. There's no real seats on the end zones. There's no open seats really. A few in the away side sometimes, but normally it's super packed. The last 2 games we've had against Idaho and Weber State, the away side's completely empty. The end zone's very empty. It's pretty embarrassing. This is the last time you may ever get to see an Eric Berrier play at home. Right? If we don't beat Montana State, and if we don't beat UC Davis, we're on the road in the playoffs. This is the last time you can see some of these studs send a block play at home, maybe. We need the fans out. We need a home field environment. Let's give these guys a win in front of an electric crowd at home for their last regular season game for all of our seniors. And this senior class is amazing. Let's give them a good home field environment. Let's get a win. So then guess what? Maybe you can see them a few more times in the postseason. If they lose here and we lose UC Davis, you're not seeing these guys at home anymore. Eric Berrier may go down as the greatest Big Sky quarterback in history when it's all said and done. and you're not going to show up to support this guy, you're not going to show up to support, Dennis Merritt, Jack Sendelbach, Kalen Kreiner, Tristan Taylor, you're not going to, show up to support these guys, shame on you. Go show up. If I wasn't in Houston, I would be showing up for every single game. Unfortunately, I am not that rich, okay? I'm doing a free podcast for all of you, and I'm going to watch it on TV because I cannot fly up to Spokane, Washington every week. I'm going to Frisco, so hopefully Eastern Washington can make it. Already have those tickets booked. But, guys, if you're in the Spokane, Cheney area, no exceptions. This is senior night. Show up for our dudes. Let's give them hell. Go Eags. Beat the Bobcats. This is now our protected rival. We don't play Montana every year. We don't play Portland State every year starting, next season. We are going to play Montana State every year. Hopefully this game continues to get bigger and bigger. This is one of the games where when I was a student, we cared about 2 teams coming to Cheney and 2 teams only. Montana State. Didn't care about Portland State. Didn't care about Idaho State. Didn't care about Weaver State. Didn't care about any of these teams. But when Montana State came, we cared. When Montana came, we cared. Okay? Let's show up for this game. Let's give these seniors the game they deserve. And let's win. Let's win. Let's get that top 4 seed so at least we could be at home throughout the quarters. And then maybe one of these top teams, they slip up. And then we can capitalize. That's all I got for you guys. We're going to have a 34-28 point win against Montana State. Boom! Go Eags!